Before we get started, Daily Detroit is brought to you in part by Your Best Choice Roofing. In my mind, there's one choice for roofing around here, and I'd go with Your Best Choice. Whether it's time to replace your roof or repair it, Best Choice Roofing provides top-notch roofing services tailored to meet the unique needs of Detroit homes and businesses. They serve the region and inside the city of Detroit, too. Find out more at bestchoiceroofing.com/Detroit. That's bestchoiceroofing.com/Detroit. Or call 313-474-7031. That's 313-474-7031. Hello, everyone, and welcome to your Daily Detroit for Friday, July 26th, 2024, coming to you from our studio at Techtown. I'm Jer, sharing what to know and where to go in Metro Detroit. And to my right is none other than the excellent Mr. Friday, Devon O'Reilly. How are you, sir?
It's great to be here, Jer. Lovely weather we're having. It's, as I've said before, the dog days of summer, but there's something to finally look forward to, at least in my opinion.
Okay, and it is?
Well, Friday, today, is the opening ceremony of the 2024 Summer Olympics. Hey,
oh my goodness.
That's fun stuff, man. I love it. That means there's stuff on TV. For the next 2 weeks, there's going to be all sorts of cool stuff on TV during the day, into the night. They're in Paris this year.
We are the Paris of the Midwest.
We are I feel, a lot of French connections, so I feel some there. The last 3 Olympics have been in Asia in various places, Tokyo, and in I think it was Korea, I believe, and then Beijing. So we've had a lot of Olympics Far East area. Bringing it back to Europe, it helps with the time zones, as we'll discuss. It helps with the time zones and viewing things. Also, this is the first Olympics in 6 years with full-on spectators and fans at the opening ceremonies and at all the games. Think about that. It's been 6 years.
I plan on celebrating by watching people do athletic endeavors while eating bread. Baguettes, other French bread.
That's great. Have some wine. I mean, make it a whole thing. The best of the best are competing. The USA, goes without saying, or maybe it doesn't, is on track to capture the most medals. We're pretty darn good at this, Jer. We've got some really good athletes.
Well, and there are some local ties too. So I got sent a press release. So I'm quoting this. I didn't third party verify this, but I believe that the state of Michigan has 14 athletes that were born here in the U.S. Contingent. And as far as collegiate athletes, so we're talking about the University of Michigan. That University of Michigan is the third most college where there is athletes coming from the University of Michigan. So they may not have been born here, but they go to U of M, going over there to Paris, and then Michigan State is also in there as well. But
I mean, Michigan has long been a leader in the best, especially in the Olympics. The most decorated Olympian of all time, Michael Phelps, a proud Wolverine.
Full disclosure: this man went to Michigan.
Hate me, love me. It is what it is. But also, I want to mention a couple things. So because it's in Paris, they're doing something also different this year. In years past, this is the pre-social, we're kind of in this pre-social media age. If you remember, Jer, in previous Olympics, the stuff, when they were in other countries, the stuff would all happen. The events would happen during the day, and then you would tune in at night. Do you remember this? Like in prime time.
And I would have to avoid, I actually literally shut off my sports apps.
They would play.
I deleted them so that I wouldn't get notifications.
They would, yeah. They've now realized it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. We can't pretend like so-and-so won a gold medal at 2 p.m. today and you're not supposed to watch it until 9 p.m. So they're playing it live. The NBC Universal family of networks are going to be playing Olympics nonstop on all sorts of channels. I probably don't even know all the channels that NBC owns, so you're just going to see Olympics everywhere. But they're just going to play them live, Jer, which I think is cool. Just watch it live in this era of social media. You can pull it up on your phone. If there's a gold medal thing that's happening, a race or an event, you can pull it up on your phone, pull it up on your laptop, watch it live. Makes it so much more exciting. And then they are going to still do prime time, like on NBC. If you tune in at 8 o'clock at night, they'll do recaps and interviews and kind of talk about what happened that day, play some of the biggest moments. So actually, I really like this format because you can watch it live if you can, and even if you miss it, you can kind of catch up at night and find out what you miss. So this is really cool. They've kind of overhauled the format for the broadcast this year. Paris is only 6 hours ahead of us, so it's not terrible. When something is on at 1:30, it's on 1:30 in Paris, 7:30 here, or do I have that wrong? Other way around, 7:30 in Paris, 1:30 here, right?
Someone in the comments is going to correct this. Because they're not listening to us live.
When it's 7:30 in Paris p.m., it's 1:30 p.m. here, Eastern Standard Time. So whatever. The point is, it's not too crazy where you're going to have, time is going to be way off. So this is really exciting. They're going to have the kind of big parade down the Seine River in France. So it's going to be like a riverboat parade, which seems interesting.
Is it insane?
It's insane in the membrane. It's going to be really, really cool. They're going to go all the way to the Trocadero and have the big kind of opening event, again, with fans for the first time in 6 years, which is really cool. The flag bearers from the USA, which are chosen, I think, by the Olympic athletes. Coco Gauff, the great tennis player. She's very young. And then LeBron James, one of the oldest athletes this year, the famous basketball player. Those will be the flag bearers for the USA team.
Okay, you know what? I wasn't as excited. Now I'm excited.
All right.
I'm pumped.
Do you have any, thinking back, I don't know how much you watch the Olympics, do you have any events that you really like?
So you're going to be mad at me, but I'm actually a Winter Olympics guy.
No way. Most people love the summer.
Yeah, so like I remember when I was a kid with my best friend down the street, setting up flipping over a pool table, like a kiddie pool, and having like a table, and we like recorded to a cassette tape really bad commentary to the Olympics. And we did it in like 88. We did it in like as a kid. So like really terrible, obviously not insightful commentary. And so this was a thing but the first year was 88, but then also a number of the Summer Olympics as well. And so for me, that is what I kind of remember as like a kid being like, the Olympics were such a big deal, and they still are.
Yeah.
But back then when you weren't as connected, it was like, oh, like you get all the results in the paper, which I'm aging myself here, but
okay, I mean, sure, Jer. I feel like the Summer Olympics has all like the big names, and what's going to bring you to the Olympics? I mean, the sports, swimming is always interesting. You've got Katie Ledecky. I think a lot of people know her from swimming. Gymnastics is always really fun to watch. You've got Simone Biles, one of the greatest Olympians of all time.
I like the rowing.
Oh, you are an odd duck, Jer. You're throwing me these wild cards. I'm giving you like the red meat. You give me rowing. What about track and field?
I'm down.
Sha'Carri Richardson. Amazing.
Absolutely.
She didn't get to compete in Tokyo. She's back with a vengeance. Of course, you have USA basketball, which is always interesting because you have some of the most famous global athletes playing, but competition has become much more tough in the world. You have all these European players who are now really, really good. Some of them dominate the NBA. So it's not going to be smooth sailing for the USA. They're going to have some tough matchups. You've got, just the future stars, Noah Lyles in track and field. So there's people to watch. There's names to watch. So clearly I'm excited about it. It's going to be a lot of fun. I just, having sports on all the time like this in the dead of summer is really enjoyable. So I'm looking forward to it.
And in fact, there's some sports already started. Like the big tournaments. I think rugby, baseball, some others.
They've kicked some, yes, the way they do it is they kick some stuff off already. So here we are. We are in Olympic season, and it'll be really cool. And then 2028, just throwing it out there, it's in LA. So the USA will get their Olympic shot in 4 years.
There's a little bit of news that we should talk about. I think people are excited that the Gordie Howe Bridge, this week it connected. This gigantic project that, frankly, people are, look, there's like two camps with this. It's like people are really excited about it or they're not. But this Gordie Howe Bridge, it changes our skyline. It's a huge deal. It is the longest cable-stayed bridge in North America. The 10th longest in the world. Is a $4.5 billion project. It's the kind of thing where it's like if you're paying attention, you realize how much impact this thing is really going to have on our city and our region.
Yeah, it is hard to be excited about something that moves so slow, such a lumbering, long project, because you're not seeing the flashiness of some of the other things. And then you talked about the $4.5 billion price tag. Talk about development in the city, and we love to talk development. This is 3 times the Hudson site in terms of dollar development. The Hudson site was $1 billion and a half. So like we're talking about 3 times that. It's insane. Canada picked up most of the price tag. They're going to collect the tolls for a while
because we didn't want to catch it. No. Throw in for it. This was a project that actually our Governor Rick Snyder wanted it to happen, but our legislature at the time, mostly Republicans, were against it. In part because the Maroon family own the Ambassador Bridge. Lots of politics involved, but this gives us redundancy. This also, I think, improves our trade connections with Canada.
Absolutely.
Like people don't realize like so much of what makes Detroit go are those transit connections for things like automotive, heavy industry, all that other stuff. And how important that is. Like, if you think about why Chicago is such a big deal, it's because it's an interconnect for trade and all that stuff. And this bridge is a huge part of that.
It's a huge economic development play. When I lived in my old place at the plaza, and I could see the bridge from our window, it was, I'd look out almost every time I would go glance over at the bridge, just lined up trucks, just lined up, not moving across the bridge. And that hurts logistics. That hurts, demand, wait times, things like that. We are going to really be able to open that up, increase that. You'll have, you'll be able to understand much more, like, okay, cars will be able to go on these lanes. They'll be much quicker. If you're crossing the bridge as a car, as a civilian, you'll be able to go over much quicker. Trucks will get over across much quicker. Like you said, Jer, it really makes us even more of a focal point for international trade and international logistics. And what does this mean? It means jobs. It means money coming into this area, because not only that, they're building these really elaborate plazas on either end of the bridge that are going to have all sorts of different businesses and commerce, and there'll be places. I mean, now, we're used to going over the bridge and you got like the little liquor store and the duty free shop and stuff. They are building out these really, I would say, pretty cool plazas that are going to have multiple businesses involved. It'll be a new place to go for commerce. So it's going to bring jobs, it's going to bring dollars, and that's what I like to see.
Well, and as far as like crossings go, it really will elevate things to where they should be. I feel like between the tunnel, which is very packed in as far as space, and then the Ambassador Bridge, which is a private entity, which, they're not going to like put the investment in because they own it, right?
There's no incentive.
There's no incentive to. They can just print money. This is the kind of thing that once people see it, they're going to be kind of like stunned, and it'll kind of shift their gears about what's possible. Mm-hmm. I think that's also the case with like the Hudson's Tower and a bunch of other developments. Like, I feel like there's like a lot of cognitive dissonance going on, even when there's continued feedback on your Rensen episode. I'm still hearing stuff 2 weeks later, because it's like there's so much change in the way that we do things that is here.
Yeah,
frankly. And I think it's a lot for people to process.
We've talked about some of this stuff for literally years, Jer, and it's all, it's coming to bear. And so it's here now. And this is a new era for us in a lot of ways for stuff like this. So this bridge is going to be really cool. I mean, again, it's one of those things where I don't even know how much I'll use it. I mean, I'd love to, go over to Canada once in a while, but I don't even know how much I'll use it. I'm just so glad that it exists. And I know that if you look, you will see the fruits of this new bridge, no matter where you sit in the region.
Now, some people will say that, there was a number of neighborhoods that were either moved or, bought out or things like that in the footprint of the bridge. Yeah. And there are people who feel very emotionally about that.
Yeah. And that is true. But also here's something that is true. There was very nice packages offered to those residents to move, to get new housing, to be relocated for much more than their current home was worth. You're talking about the Delray area. I drive through Delray a lot just because it was so freaking interesting in my exploring, Jer.
There were some epic dive bars back
Oh my
in the
God,
day.
were they? And they were almost all closed. There was like 2 left at one point. I mean, you're talking about at the time, but I mean, we're talking about, as of when they started doing this, Jer, that it was extremely sparse. I mean, that was one of the most abandoned, desolate areas. So yes, they did have to offer people who are still living in those homes money to move to other parts of the city. In some cases, they built new houses. In some cases, they moved them into newer, updated houses. The quality of life in Delray, because of the factory in Zug Island, it was a very poor quality of life. I mean, we can get into it, but there was, recorded a lot of health issues of people who live in that area. So I don't want to pretend like
the air quality is not great.
Yeah, I don't want to pretend like we're, some magnanimous, we've saved you, you should thank us. But let's also be realistic. And I want to point out, I'm agreeing with you and being realistic that yes, people were displaced to create this bridge. But I also want to point out that the quality of life and the health conditions of that area had deteriorated so bad that it just wasn't tenable.
I feel like I want to offer you the swing that I have offered all of our Daily Detroit contributors about the news that happened last weekend. We've changed presidential candidates, everything else.
Did we? Wait, really?
Yes.
Oh my goodness, I haven't seen anything about this.
Nothing at all, huh? Nothing. Just under a rock.
Okay, sarcasm may come through on the camera. I don't know if it does on the podcast.
Right. I would like to hear what your thoughts are in the frame of Metro Detroit, Michigan, kind of like the local frame and kind of like local business and autos and things that touch us, and kind of thoughts that you have, because I think you apply a different lens than a lot of people do. Because like we started out the week talking with Steve Freese. He will be back again on Monday. We'll talk about some other things, but he applied a very political lens, and I think you provide a very strong business lens.
Sure. Well, I don't want to put myself in the same category as Steve because he's a professional at what he does. I'm just coming here to yak with you. And like everyone else, I haven't had a lot of time to really collect my thoughts on different aspects of this. I mean, certainly I'll just speak broadly, and I don't want this to become, political in the sense, but man, do I feel a lot of enthusiasm just from people, just general enthusiasm. You know what I mean? I don't want to say anymore. The vibe is shifted. There's whatever, I can't ignore it. On whether it's on my news feeds or scrolling on whatever social media app or going to news sites. There is just incredible enthusiasm, the likes of which I don't even want to invoke years like 2008, but it feels a little bit like that kind of, does feel partially like that. So off the bat, there's just this tremendous energy and enthusiasm that is palpable, and then. How does it affect business? How does it affect, stuff going forward in policy? I think it becomes a little more forward looking. We've already seen the campaign talk a little bit more about the future. We're not going back. It seems like she's really started to kind of, she said it once, and she's only had a few chances to speak publicly. Vice President Harris said it once about we're not going back, we're looking forward. And I think that type of energy, especially for a business community, is really interesting. And, stories have come out that, she's really looking back into crypto and where can she kind of make a play in the kind of crypto space, people who are interested in that. You talk about EVs, clearly, and the Democratic platform is very open to proliferation of EVs, environmental policy.
Very much part of like the bigger like environmental, like climate change is real kind of thing.
And when you look at Trump's policies, and again, please don't take this as like a specific political thing. I'm just telling you the facts. Trump's policies are just with the wind, right? He meets with Elon Musk and he all of a sudden Tesla's great, but also then he meets with coal people and EVs are trash and we should get rid of them and we should make sure that combustion engines are the way of the future. So that's what's scary, I think, for a lot of business leaders is Donald Trump has no affiliation to any belief system. He kind of just sways with whoever is talking nice to him at the time. That's a little scary because it's extremely volatile.
So that's the thing I think people need to understand is that in some ways, whatever the rules are, as long as they're consistent, business can figure it out.
Exactly. Business people, by and large, are smart, especially at the top. You may not agree with it, but they do what they're supposed to do, and they can at least function in a system where, like you said, Jer, we know the rules and regulations. We're going to try and push the boundaries, but we know how you feel about this. We know what you're going to receive positively. We know what you're going to try and steer us away from, but they can work in that system, whether it's Democrat or Republican. What becomes really difficult for a business is when there's so much volatility that they don't know where it's going to go next, and they don't know kind of what the next decree or what the next enemy is going to become, and that becomes really difficult. And that's why, to kind of appease Trump, what you see is if you are a business leader, a billionaire, whatever, you're just trying to give him some money and talk to him real nice and butter him up because you want what you want what you will, and he'll give you it at the time, and then he might throw you under the bus. That is it's not a really good economic policy. And the stock market, I know people with the economy in general has done extremely well in the last 4 years. So clearly the business community is not scared of a Democratic presidency. They've actually responded very well to it.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, there's so much rhetoric that people get into about their side, and it kind of misses the thing on the ground. And when I think about that rhetoric, I think about something you and I were talking about off air that relates to the auto industry and EVs, because there is some like inconsistency. If you look at brands like Tesla or other EV forward things, there's been some like back and forth where it's like, well, what is actually going to happen here? Like there was a recent earnings call too.
There was a Tesla earnings call. I mean, Tesla has dropped, I think like, I don't know how, almost 20%, something like that. They dropped 30 points on Wednesday. They started dropping again on Thursday. There was an earnings call that was terrible. The numbers were terrible. And Elon Musk, from what's being said on the call, invoked Trump's name multiple times, saying like, well, if Trump's the president, it's going to get better. And investors were pushing back on the call, saying, why? Why would it get better? Everything he says, he's against, he's for tariffs. He's against, EVs. He's against the EV incentives. He talks crap about EVs all the time. Why would it get better? And Elon didn't really have an answer. He just kind of had a trust me, bro attitude towards it. So he was definitely pushing the Trump in this. And I think he's met with him recently. So, of course, what I just said. So there's a lot of inconsistency and people responding to that. There's also this whole vibe shift of like, who's buying a Tesla now? EV customers are predominantly liberal, progressive type of folks, obviously, just for obvious reasons. We don't need to get it. We talk about it all the time. And the fact that Elon Musk has become this like right wing, like far right propagandist has just turned so many people off. I don't think there's many progressive people who want to buy a Tesla now. It was like buying a Trump car. You're basically buying, you're buying the EV with a MAGA hat on it. And who wants to do that?
And then you have the other issue that EVs in general are kind of having like a little bit of not a plateau, because I think this is for now, but like we've hit an adoption level that I feel like there needs to be some changes to get it to the like for adoption to continue, there needs to be some changes.
Exactly, Jer. I appreciate you bringing that up, because it's not just a political thing either. It's the over macro trends that are happening where EVs are still growing. And, people, you can look at the numbers. EVs are still growing. The problem is they're not growing as quickly as they would need to, given what the automakers were preparing for. They were transitioning factories. They were building new factories just for EVs, and they were envisioning a certain level of output because they thought there would be a demand. That demand is not exactly where it is, but the percentage of EVs as a whole is steadily increasing.
And to be fair, there's other automakers that are having issues with EV sales. General Motors is scaling back some of their plans, but General Motors also sells other things in electric vehicles. Whereas Tesla, that's it.
And you got to give people, exactly. And you got to give people options. I think at the end of the day, you and I talked about it. I look at this very pragmatically. I drive a combustion engine car. I would continue to do so. I would love to drive an EV if it makes sense for me. I'm more of a guy of convenience. I think most people are. They just want things like we said, Jerry, let's bring this back to the first conversation. People like things to generally be easy. And so the more EVs can seem as accessible and easy to use. I think you and I mentioned this in a few episodes ago about the idea that hybrids kind of got skipped over. And maybe I think some automakers are looking back and saying, well, wait a second, maybe that's the way to kind of get people over the hump, is to say, you've got your combustion engine, you got your hybrid. Let's go back to hybrids, do more of that, and then we'll slowly get people to adopt, rather than trying to just say we are cutting all of our gas-powered cars and then switching over to EVs. That was probably too drastic.
Toyota has really been the automaker that kind of had the right timing on that. And I'm just going to say myself, and I think you were on some of those episodes, I myself said we need a middle step. And I got a lot of mail, people being like, well, no, it'll never happen. Whether they were all about combustion engines or they were all about, well, we need to simplify the cost chain and we can't have this middle step. But at the end of the day, if people want to buy the thing, you sell them the thing, and people really want to buy hybrids. And I was talking to a friend of mine who's a former combustion engineer who has a hybrid, and it's absolutely great. Like you get huge, range, but you also don't have to think about charging the thing.
You don't get the range anxiety, and that's
right. The range without the range anxiety. And you know what? Maybe the next generation of cars. Look, I would buy an EV, but my lifestyle fits an EV.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Not
everyone's does.
Right. Not everyone's does. My commute is short. I have some road trips that I know that I could break and do stuff with. It would fit for me.
The EV is the second car. We've said this before. It's one of those things where if you are in a position where you can have two cars in your household or in your life, the EV is great as your second car. But still, people are probably rightfully apprehensive to have their only their only car, their only mode of transportation for their family or for their couple to be an EV. That is, I think people are still rightfully so a little apprehensive about that.
And the cost issue, right? Because if you're only going to have one car, there's a few different costs involved with the EVs. Not only to the initial purchase price, but we're finding out too that insurance for EVs is a lot higher as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So there's some things to consider there, but ultimately, you and I are totally on board on this. I think that automakers need to look back into kind of the hybrid technology. It would be nice for, let's just use Ford because they're my favorite. It'd be nice to have a couple of flagship vehicles that are hybrid. So, basically, if Ford wants to move away from combustible engine, okay, let's do that. But let's, for the next few years, have Explorer hybrid be the one you're pushing, or Edge hybrid be the ones that you're pushing, and then the EVs, you can have your Mach-E, you can have your F-150. That's what I'd like to see as far as a mix.
Mach-E is fun,
yeah,
but the Mach-E is fun.
Keep the Mach-E fun. Keep it. The Lightning is still the F-150 Lightning is a great product, so you can have your full EVs. But let's transition. Like the Explorers, the Edges, the Escapes, that kind of lineup, make those the hybrids, and that's how you get people. That's your entree to get people to go fully EV.
And I feel like that doesn't just apply to Ford. I feel like that
I'm using it because I know the models, I know their lineup. But that makes sense. Something like that.
Well, everyone, thank you so much for listening to your Daily Detroit. It's been another week of, I hope, engaging content. As always, don't forget to leave us 5 stars on your favorite podcast app and tell a friend about the show. It is the best way to push Detroit's conversation forward. With that, I'm Jer Stays.
I'm Devon O'Reilly.
Thank you so much for listening. Remember that you are somebody, and I'll see you around Detroit.